Right, so wonderful. Thank you for joining. Today you are here for our lovely webinar, which is entitled Avoid the Penalty Points, the smarter way to start your Making Tax Digital journey. So what we're going to go through is basically hopefully some recaps. We always like to make this practical for you, so there will definitely be some top tips and some checklists and things that you can hopefully take away with you and actually practically apply. So if I just move on. So as you can see, I change my hair color constantly, so apologize. My photo is always out of sync. But I am currently head of the network development here at Tax Assist Accountants. My role is to ensure that every client receives the highest standard of service and support throughout the Tax Assist Accountants network. So whether you're new to us or you've been with us for years, partly what I do is I do speak at a lot of events. I do host these types of webinars on hot topics such as MTD, Making Tax Digital, or any other developments and things that are happening in the accountancy industry that I think are going to help you guys, with your businesses, and hopefully just relay things in a way that makes it, again, practical, hands-on. You can actually use the knowledge that I'm giving you to hopefully help yourself and upskill yourself as well. And by background, I am actually a chartered accountant myself. So I've got obviously a variety of knowledge in there as well. And what I'm going to do now is just pass over to my lovely colleague, Helen.
Thank you very much, Sam. Hi, everybody. It's lovely to be here today. My name is Helen Wood. Like Sam, I am also a chartered accountant by profession, and I'm the technical content writer for Tax Assist. And I've been in the role here for 9 months so far, and it's a fantastic role. And what I do is I create articles and other kinds of content for our website, and I also work on social media. So you might see me on the occasional YouTube video on our channel, and I have worked on podcasts and some other kinds of guides, and I look at all elements of tax and accounting and trying to break down those topics to make them clear. As I mentioned, I'm a chartered accountant, and before Tax Assist, I worked in a couple of other chartered accountancy firms, and I worked in practice for 17 years advising clients. So what are we going to cover today? And I think Sam has mentioned a few of these things already, but I'll whistle through the list here. We're going to cover who must comply with Making Tax Digital for income tax, and when you need to comply if you're within that framework. How the new Making Tax Digital for income tax penalties work. Running through a monthly no surprises routine, and that will include the checklist that Sam mentioned. How to make quarterly updates simple for you and your business, and the dates that matter throughout the tax year to keep compliant with Making Tax Digital. So a quick recap of what Making Tax Digital for income tax is. So it's a government initiative to modernise the tax system. And if you are VAT registered, your business is VAT registered, you might be familiar with Making Tax Digital for VAT, which came in 2019, and then but for all VAT registered businesses for 2022. So Making Tax Digital for income tax is the next iteration of that project. And it starts very shortly on the 6th of April 2026, after a few stuttering starts where we had with dates that it was going to start and got put back, but now it is genuinely all systems go from next month. And the Making Tax Digital for income tax sort of phases of people coming in are based on qualifying income, and we'll go through that in a little while. But essentially, there's going to be three phases for people to join Making Tax Digital, and it is going to be self-employed, sole traders, and landlords and people with rental income who this applies to. So the key aims for the Making Tax Digital for income tax project for HMRC's purposes are improving accuracy and reducing errors, providing real tax information to HMRC, and that's the quarterly updates rather than just a single tax return each year, and making record keeping easier for businesses and individuals. So that's around having software and having all of your bookkeeping all in your software system, and then using that to upload your quarterly updates and your end of year tax return. So what makes MTD or Making Tax Digital different? And the quarterly updates are the big thing, really. That is a change from self-assessment. There are 4 submissions during the tax year, and you only include your self-employment and or your property income and the expenses associated with those in those quarterly updates. You don't include any kinds of reliefs or any accounting adjustments. And if you've got other forms of income like employment income or savings interest, those don't go on there either. It's just your self-employment and property income. If you do have more than one business, so if you have a sole trade and then you also have rental income as a landlord, you have to do a separate quarterly submission for each business. So you could have 2 or more submissions at those quarterly updates. Once those 4 quarterly updates are done, and at the end of the tax year, there is a tax return which replaces the self-assessment tax return that you have probably done so far. Now, that tax return does include other forms of income, so employment income, savings income, dividends income, and then you do all of the year-end adjustments and any claiming of reliefs and allowances at that point. And it's just one tax return. Even if you have multiple businesses, that tax return pulls together all those sources of income into one tax return. And that tax return is through your Making Tax Digital software rather than through the HMRC portal or being a paper return. So everything is under that software. Okay. So the big question, who must comply with Making Tax Digital? And as I've mentioned, it's sole trade businesses and landlords only at this stage. So HMRC have said that they're not going to be applying Making Tax Digital for corporation tax. At some point in the future, it is going to be applied to partnerships, but at the moment, it's sole trade businesses and landlords only. And based on your 2024-25 tax return, so that is the tax return that was due by the 31st of January this year, there are thresholds which will be looked at, and this is if your qualifying income is meeting certain thresholds. So the taxpayers who need to join Making Tax Digital by this April, so next month, are those with a qualifying income over £50,000. And then next year, that qualifying income will go down to £30,000. And the following year, so 2028, that's qualifying income over £20,000. So the big question here, I guess, is what counts as qualifying income, and we will go through that shortly as well. So qualifying income is your gross income from your self-employed sole trades, your property income, and nothing else. It's just the sole trade income and the property income. So you don't count any other forms of income, and you don't apply excuse me, you don't apply deductions or reliefs at all. So it really is your gross income and not your profits. So if you had, for instance, you had employment income of £50,000, self-employment income of £10,000, and property income of £10,000, that would be qualifying income of £20,000, and you wouldn't meet the threshold to join next month because you would need £50,000 of qualifying income to join. So you wouldn't be required to join next month. It doesn't matter that the employment income is there because that just doesn't count towards this qualifying income. HMRC did send letters to people based on the qualifying income that they could see in tax returns, and those letters went out in batches depending on when people actually filed those returns. and anybody who filed in January, so the final month before the deadline, will be receiving letters this month. But if you don't receive a letter but do believe you had qualifying income above £50,000, it is still up to you to join Making Tax Digital, even if you didn't receive that letter. I can see a raised hand there. I don't know whether should we leave those questions to the end, Sam, or what's the best way to
Yeah, I would
bring
just
those in?
encourage you
That's
to,
okay.
rather than raise hands at this precise moment, we will look at that towards the end of the webinar. If you can put in your questions in the chat box for now, that just makes it a lot easier for us to either answer live or get back to you. But yeah, if you put them in, I'm typing answers live as we're going through. And if not, we'll try and address them verbally as well. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. I think we're on to the next slide there, Sam. Excellent. So there is a new penalty system in place for Making Tax Digital. So this will be a change from the way that any penalties for late returns or late payment of tax worked under self-assessment. And this replaces automatic fines for first offences. So I think most people will be aware that if you file your self-assessment tax return a day late, HMRC gave an automatic fine of £100. Those penalties have gone under Making Tax Digital, and there's a point system instead. So what happens with the points is that if you file a quarterly update or your annual tax return late, you would get 1 point. And once you have 4 points, a £200 penalty is then applied. The points can reset to 0, and for that to happen, you have to file on time over the next 12 months. So that would be all of your quarterly updates and your annual tax return. And then if you have filed everything that's needed for 24 months, so 2 years, then your points get reset to 0. Now, the bit of a sting in the tail here is that if you have incurred a £200 penalty and you have another update or tax return that's late, you will get another penalty. So it's not just kind of a one penalty and then that's done. They can be cumulative in that way. So it's really key to get those updates and tax returns under control and filed on time. Okay. And then separately to the late filing penalties, there are late tax payment penalties, and these have changed somewhat as well. So the fines for late payments of taxes are based on the tax being outstanding at 15 days, at 30 days, and then after 30 days. So the fine is 3% of the outstanding tax 15 days after that was due, and the tax due date is still 31st of January following the tax year end, in the same way that it was for self-assessment. That tax payment date hasn't changed. And then if your tax is still outstanding 30 days afterwards, it's another 3% of your tax due amount. And then there can be further penalties after that if your tax is still outstanding at 10%, up to 10% per year. And there's also interest on top, as there is with other late payment penalties. Now, for the first year of Making Tax Digital, there are some concessions to both the late filing and the late tax payment penalties. So on the filing penalty, so that's the points, HMRC are not going to apply penalties for late quarterly updates, just for 1 year only, just until everything is bedded in and people are sorted after that first year. And for late tax payment penalties, the 15-day late payment of tax penalty, that 3%, they're not going to apply that for this first year either. So 30 days would be the first time that the penalty would hit this year. But again, that is just for 1 year. Next year, the 15 days would be the first point that a penalty hits. So it's really crucial to get all of these dates sort of diarised and know when those filings and tax payments need to be made, to make sure you've got everything comfortable for the following year.
Oh, I'm sorry, Helen. I'm getting distracted by questions.
Oh,
There we go. Oh,
and
this is me anyway.
it is. I'll hand back over to you. Thank you, Sam.
Right. I'm just going to cover a quick few questions just to get on top of some of the ones coming in. So I've managed to answer a few, so hopefully you're getting those answers. Couple of ones. Someone's asked about sort of definitions around sole trader versus self-employed. I mean, typically, sole trader is someone that is a one-man band operating a business themselves. Self-employed is the term that we use to someone that is running a business, but they might not necessarily be a sole trader. So self-employed can also incorporate people in a partnership business and things like that. It can incorporate your landlords, etc., etc. So sole trader is specifically someone operating a trade just by themselves. So basically, obviously under MTD, it's basically those that have are a one-man band, have a trade, or someone that has property income. So landlords, they are the people that are going to be affected by this. Hopefully that answers that question. I will cover some of these questions off a little bit later, especially I've had quite a lot around software and software recommendations and free software and everything else. So let me come back to those. I'll cover those off. Someone's asked about the new penalty point system. And yes, for those that still have to comply with the normal self-assessment, this new system is going to come in for that as well. So, just be mindful of that. What else have we got? Obviously a few people sharing your comments on how you don't agree with this system. And it's a bit complicated and it's a big change. And the long story short is, yes, it is a massive change. It is gonna, like anything, the first time you do it, it is going to take you a bit longer to get your head around it, so I know that this is going to put pressures on you guys running businesses. It's not an easy thing to do. We are going from one submission to technically 5, your 4 quarterly submissions and your year end. So, there is, increased requirements and burdens, but actually, I promise you, if you can create a solid process and use the software to your advantage, because of how far technology has come, it does automate a lot. So as much as you have to allow for a bit of extra time in the first year that you're doing it while you're getting your head round it all, actually ongoing, it should actually speed things up, and you should find it helpful to understand that throughout the year that you're going, you will actually have an idea of what your tax bill is looking like. It's not perfect, but it does help. All right, so I think I've answered a few of those questions. I'm sure Helen will sort of try and respond to you directly as well. Bless her, but I'm just going to come back to the slides now. So one of the key things with MTD that I've just mentioned is coming up with a process. All right, now, in order to keep on top of things, I cannot recommend this enough. Although the submissions are quarterly, where possible, please don't save your bookkeeping to just sitting down doing it once a quarter. I would encourage you to do it each month, all right, as a minimum. If you want to go beyond that, by all means, but doing it monthly will make your life easier because it breaks it down that much further for you. And again, once you use software, there's various bits of kit that will actually streamline the process for you. So as an example, the softwares that we use and we're recommending to our clients here at TaxAssist are QuickBooks, Xero, okay? Now, obviously, within both of those products, they're quite similar, but they have things called bank feeds, which basically mean it links up directly to your bank account and will feed the transactions into the software. And the good thing about the bit of kit is it's, especially with AI and everything, it learns. So it starts to understand that, you're always posting Shell petrol receipts to Motor. So it will automatically start to do that for you. Okay, so it's quite clever and intuitive, which does make your life a lot easier. Now, obviously, there's various pricing out there, and these bits of software, they always do like launch pricing or new pricing for new customers. So I won't touch on pricing today. You only have to go on their websites to have a little look to see what pricing would be available to you. Okay, here at Tax Assist, we do guide our clients through the recommended product. Other bits of software are Dext. So that software is very clever in that if you are, I would say, a smaller sole trade business or smaller property business, Dext is quite a good bit of kit. Now, you can actually use Dext alongside QuickBooks and Xero. But again, if you're on the smaller side, so around this sort of 50K turnover threshold as a sole trader, or maybe you've only got 1 or 2 properties max, then actually this could be a good product to use, because you can actually take photos on your phone of the receipts and invoices that you've raised, and it will scan all that information in. It's got incredible OCR technology that reads that information, pulls it off, and enables, again, to learn from where you're posting things, to post things to relevant expense headings and income headings for you, which is very clever. And again, it's very good is if you're one of these smaller businesses that maybe you don't have a dedicated business bank account. You might just have a personal bank account that these transactions are going through. So actually, maybe you don't want to link the bank account up like you do in QuickBooks or Xero, because you're going to have lots of your personal transactions going through, which is just a bit of a waste, really. Then actually Dext could be a good solution for you. So that's definitely worth a look. And for those landlords out there that maybe you are a bit bigger, maybe you've got several properties, there is a specific bespoke a landlord software called Hammock. And again, not only does it help you with MTD and record all your transactions and potentially link up bank accounts, more importantly, it helps you keep track of your properties. So you can put extra information in there, like, when, leases are coming up for renewal, when you've got a change in tenants, and, keeping track of the tenant details and all this type of information to really help you manage your property portfolio. So again, that's a very nice bit of kit. Now, I appreciate that some of you, as you've mentioned, you've asked about free software. Typically, we don't work with sort of free software here, but I can give you a clue in that there are several free softwares out there. I know that Free Agent can be free if you've got a relevant bank account. So again, that could be worth looking at. And there are loads more. Dare I say, you can only go on Google and search for free software. But, big but, any software you are looking to use for MTD, HMRC has actually created a list of all the pre-approved software that you can use, both free and paid. Okay, so your start point should be to go to HMRC and look for their pre-approved MTD software, because unfortunately, as with a lot of companies and softwares out there, some may claim they're MTD compliant, but they may not actually be MTD compliant. So please go off the software that's on this HMRC pre-approved list, because that's your guarantee that it can handle MTD. So that would be my start point to you. All right. Now, again, if you're really stuck on what software to use and you just want someone to be able to tell you based on your actual situation, what is the best product to use for the price point that you're looking at, then this is where I would strongly encourage you to come speak to us at Tax Assist. We can help you with this journey. But equally, you can go speak to other accountants as well out there, but they can absolutely guide you in what the type of software is best for you to use. And again, I appreciate that not everyone's appetite to software is the same. Some people are very happy and are comfortable using software. Others, maybe not so much. Maybe you struggle a bit more. You're not as familiar with software. You've never used it before. You just want a bit of helping hand and some guidance and someone just to make, help you with that onboarding process. Then again, this is where us at Tax Assist can really help you with that. Okay. So we want to make sure that it's the right bit of kit for you. So when it comes to your monthly sort of bookkeeping routine, we have created a checklist, which I'll show you on the next slide, but you basically want to create something that's right for you. Now, every every business out there going to work slightly differently. There's going to be, some people might be more complex, so you need a slightly longer checklist. But the key thing is to make sure that if you've got a bank feed that's linked up to the software, that you check that it's basically mirrors what is going on in your actual bank. So you want to kind of vouch your year-end bank, your month-end bank statement balance to the bank balance that's in your software. You want to make sure that if you are taking photos, like using Dex, that you've scanned everything and you haven't missed anything out. So a bit of a top tip is when you're raising invoices, that's why invoices normally have an invoice number on, and they will go in sequential order. So you want to make sure that every invoice is logged that way. And again, with expenses, you might want to refer back to your bank statements to make sure you haven't missed anything off or lost anything. And I would always encourage that when you're using your phone to use this software, do it there and then. The amount of times I've been stood in a Shell garage at a service station up and down the UK, and I'm stand there scanning my petrol receipts so I don't lose them. People have asked, oh, what are you doing there? And I say, it's because I'm logging the receipt here and now, because I don't want to risk losing that receipt, because what that could mean at a later date is if I haven't got the receipt, I can't potentially claim the tax relief. So actually, I'd be then at a disadvantage and be paying more tax than I should be. So this sort of product really helps with that. And then some of the things that, your accountant would normally help you doing. But again, if you're comfortable with this type of bookkeeping, you might be doing this in yourself previously. You can do reconciliations on things like your bank statement, which is a way that we sort of a manual check on checking to make sure you've got all the income and expenses recorded by using what was the brought forward balance, any adjustments, your income, your expenses, and then making sure that month end balance then ties in with the actual bank statements. And also just generally looking at the software to make sure that you've posted things correctly. You haven't double counted anything. You haven't accidentally put a credit note on when you should have put an invoice on. Some of these tricky things that might stand out and look a bit odd. You kind of just have to sit there with a fresh pair of eyes and preferably a cup of coffee and just analyze out and make sure nothing jumps out at you as a little bit odd. So well worth doing that. So if I just go on to the next slide, we've kind of produced this sort of summary checklist. Which basically is just showing you that, the key bits that you kind of want to do in every section when you're doing your bookkeeping, making sure everything's there, bringing your bank and credit card things, information up to date, because all that needs to be included, looking for any missing or unclear items that you might need to correct, reviewing any income and expenditures to make sure it seems sensible and, make sure that from your point of view, you're kind of happy that everything's in there that should be. Updating any ledgers if you guys are selling on credit. So you might have debtors, customers that owe you money. You might be buying things on credit, so you might owe suppliers money. So again, updating those ledgers to keep track of that. And again, just making sure every transaction has some kind of evidence to it, whether you're keeping physical documentation in a box, in a filing system, or whether you're using something like Dext, where you're taking photos of everything. The good news is if you use that type of product, once you've taken that photo, as long as that photo is clear and legible, then that proves part of your evidence and you then don't need to keep the physical receipt or document, which is very good and saves a lot of storage space. And then completing like a mini monthly review, which again is just that sense check to make sure that you've got in everything that you need to and make sure that you're comparing it to last month. Does it seem sensible? Does the amount of income I've got in, is that comparable for maybe the same month last year? Again, all these sorts of checks just to make sure it's as accurate as possible. And then obviously at that point, you should be ready to then get ready to file your quarterly submission once you've done those 3 months. Okay. So things like this. Now, again, each of you will be a little bit differently. So, I'd encourage you to almost create your own little checklist once you've got your head around things. But you can certainly use this as a bit of a base point. And then once you've sort of been doing your monthly bookkeeping, which again is putting you in very good habits, and again utilizing the software, once you get in the swing of things and find your rhythm, it does speed up quite a lot. And then when it comes to your quarterly updates, then basically if you've done those 3 months as we've just gone through, the quarterly submission is straightforward because you're basically just looking over the quarter and thinking, right, is there anything else? Nope. Okay, we're going to submit. because you don't have to worry about doing any accounting adjustments. You don't have to worry about claiming any specific reliefs. All that needs to go in those quarterly updates is your income and your expenses. All right. And just making sure that they're as accurate as possible. Okay. It can all be sent. So whatever MTD compliant software you're using, whether it's free or paid for, if it's on that MTD pre-approved list, it means can be filed directly to HMRC with a click of a button, or maybe a couple clicks. And then what the software will generally then do is it will actually provide you with a tax estimate. Now, the big caveat warning. With these estimates, they are purely going off the income and expenditure that you are showcasing in that quarter. It is not accounting for any reliefs. It's not accounting for any accounting adjustments that may happen at the year end. So it is very much a guide, a very rough and ready guide. So as much as you should use it as a bit of okay, I need to make sure I'm saving for my tax bill. All right. Also take it with a pinch of salt. Okay. It's not perfect. Okay. And again, as you go throughout the year, the estimate will update itself every time you submit the next quarter. It will look at both quarters together to give you a sort of revise. This is what you're due based on this quarter, both together. This is now your sort of roughly what your tax bill is looking like. Okay, so it starts to give you an idea for, again, how much you should be saving for. So it is helpful. And it should help streamline things because, often my own personal experience, I do get a lot of clients and they're really not sure what their tax bill is going to be at the end of the year. And it is helpful to have a rough idea throughout the year. So this can be a sort of useful, rough and ready guide. Okay. When we start to look at the sort of reporting deadline, so you can see on screen, now the default position is it's going to go on what we call tax quarters, based off of tax months, which always align with the tax year. I've said tax a lot in that sentence, I apologise. So you can see on there, the first one is going to run from the 6th of April through to the following 5th of July. That's the first quarter. Now, actually, I appreciate not everyone likes these dates, okay? The 6th to the 5th, a little bit confusing. So you can actually elect, okay, and this has to be an election, to HMRC, and you can state to HMRC that I'd want to use calendar quarterly periods. And again, they then, as you can see on screen, nicely align to the calendar months. All right, it can mentally make things a lot easier. Now, the deadline for both of those, whatever mechanism you use, whether you stick with the default or you elect for the calendar, the deadline is basically 1 month, 7 days after that quarter end. So you can see there for the first one ending the 5th of July or 30th of June, the deadline for submitting that quarterly MTD submission is going to be the 7th of August. All right. So you have to get those done by then. Now that is the latest to file it. Doesn't mean that if you are on point and you get everything done, say by the 5th of July, there's nothing to say you can't file that MTD quarter end on just after the 5th of July. So 6th of July. Okay, you have to wait till the day has been, but then you could technically, if everything's on point, file the very next day. Okay, so it does mean you can stay ahead of the curve if you want to, but technically you have until the 7th of August for that first one. All right, and you can see the rest of the year just below. Now, the next slide from memory. Oh, no, we've got digital tools first, so let's cover this off. I've obviously covered some of the softwares that we've always used already, and you can see some of the key features that I touched on earlier. And now I know that for some of you, you will have still been using, whether it's Excel spreadsheets, manual processes, you might even still be handwriting in a cash book. They're still out there, they still exist. Something quite therapeutic about writing things out, but we must get digital. Now, as much as this will feel like a jump for those of you that have been operating under those old methods, I promise you, other than getting to grips with a new bit of software, most of them are quite intuitive. But I promise you, once you get to grips with it, it will speed up the process for you. It is so much quicker than manual and using Excel spreadsheets because of how it automates certain things, and it will prompt you. If it thinks something looks a bit wrong, the software does prompt you. So, it can help reduce errors and things like that as well. So software can very much become your friend. But again, it has to be the right software for you. There's no point getting a software that's too complex, you know, and paying for something that you're not going to use half the fancy bits of, you know, kit in it. It's a waste of money. No one wants to spend more on it, but it's about finding the right bit of software that is going to work with you, you know, with your capabilities, and something that you can actually get on with and benefit from. So finding that is very much the sort of challenge out of everything that we're doing with MTD. So again, I can't stress this enough. I'm going to still promote Taxis because obviously that's where I am, and I know that we do things to a very high standard, but there's not to say that other accountants out there won't do the same as well. Okay, so I would encourage you that if you're struggling to find the right bit of software, do go speak to someone. They can sit down with you and help you work out not just what software to use, but how best to use it. Okay, and don't get me wrong, you know, we can talk to you about, you know, rather than maybe taking this stress on yourself, why don't let us do it all for you? We'll make sure you're digital, we'll do it all for you. All you have to do is drop off your records as normal, and we will take that burden away from you. We will deal with all the software, you know, we will file everything for you, haven't got to worry. But equally, some people are sort of middle of the road where they don't necessarily want to do it all themselves. They don't necessarily want an accountant to do it all. So we can actually work with you to say, right, what bits are you happy doing? What bits would you like us to do? And that's where we can then agree on the bits that we can do. And that might be you do all the core bookkeeping, but we're there as your peace of mind that we will check what you've done, adjust anything that needs to be adjusted to make sure it's accurate, and then do that little submission for you so you get that peace of mind that everything's as it should be. All right. So again, you know, good accountants will work with you based on how you want it, and also, you know, understand what your price point is as well. So we can work with you to tailor our service levels to meet that sort of goal that you're working towards and help you. All right. That's the key. Your accountant should always be helpful. So on top of actually helping with the MTD, we offer lots of training. We do lots more webinars and bespoke stuff. But crucially, we become a bit of a sort of go-between between you and the software. So rather than you having to be in a ridiculously long telephone queue trying to get hold of someone at X, Y, and Z software because you've got an issue because your software's not doing this and this, then actually we can help you. We can answer those queries for you most of the time and guide you in that process. But also with the softwares that we work closely with, we have special dedicated lines that we can phone and get through first time. So we can really help speed that process up as well. So it is beneficial there. Now, the next couple of slides I appreciate are very, very confusing in the sense that there's a lot of dates that you can see on screen. So I'm not going to go through absolutely everything on these because obviously I believe the slides and the recording will be up on our website, so you can refer back to them as well. But just so you get a bit of an idea where this overlap comes in. So technically, when the 5th of April comes up in a couple of months, I say couple of months, oh, scarily, it's next month now, isn't it? So next month, 5th of April creeps up. That is the end of the tax year 25-26, and you are still expected to do a normal self-assessment tax return before the 31st of January 27. But at the same time that you're then meant to be doing that, MTD kicks in. For those of you that have got qualifying income above 50 grand, your obligation then kicks in. So you're going to have to start reporting quarterly for the 26-27 tax year. All right, so we are very much doubling up. But let me make this very clear, because this always scares people because they think doubling up, oh, I'm going to have to pay 2 lots of tax. No. So the payment deadlines, even under MTD, have not changed. So obviously for 25-26, you do a normal tax return that is due to be filed and paid by 31st of January 2027. But MTD kicks in for those of you that get pulled in for the 26-27 tax year. But again, that doesn't have to be paid, and that final submission doesn't have to be in until the 31st of January 2028. Okay, so you still always get that 9 months following the end of the tax year to pay your tax bill at the moment. Who knows what the government's going to do in the future? We can kind of guess, but you know, we're not there yet, thankfully. So you've still got that extended time. So I think someone actually asked me, well, hang on a minute, does that mean I can't file my tax return or that year-end tax return any earlier? Well, actually, it's still the same. You still have to wait for the tax year to finish. So, so do all your quarterly submissions. But as long as you do them like well in time, you can still pretty much do your year-end tax return in that following April if you really want ahead of the game. But also, you then wouldn't have to pay that bill until 9 months after that 31st of January following that tax year end. Okay. Does that make sense? Well, I hope it does. I've kind of laid it out on screen. I appreciate it's a lot to digest there, and then I've sort of gone through to extend it, just to make sure that you can see and understand it. But do take the time to sort of get your head around it. And for those of you joining MTD in later years, you're still going to have that overlap in that first year. So just be mindful of it. It is a lot. I get it. There's a lot being put on your plate. First year, something new, you've got to transition. It feels like you've got two lots all at once. It is a burden. But again, once you get in the swing of things, it will make your life easier. And don't be afraid to get help, even if it's just in that first year, to make sure you understand exactly what to do, what software to use, how to do it all. And then potentially you take it back and do it yourself in future years. All right. So do lean on it. And obviously, we will try and get more information out to guide people where we can. Obviously, I've talked throughout about how Taxis can help in numerous areas, whether it's helping you with the actual process and taking some of the burden off you, we can do it for you. Or even just guiding you on what software to use, etc. We can help with all of that. But again, it's above that. It's training you, it's educating you. But it's also, as accountants, we want to make sure that we make you as tax efficient as possible. I never like anyone paying a penny more tax than they legally have to. Thank you very much. So we work hard to make sure we're utilising any available reliefs and allowances that we can. So again, that sometimes takes some of the pressure off you, because unfortunately our UK tax system is probably one of the most complicated in the world. So having someone to focus on the numbers and making sure your finances are correct while you focus on the business, that's our goal. We want you to focus on what you're good at. We will focus on the numbers, but equally, all of our taxist accountants are business owners themselves. So they will actually be able to help you improve your business as well and help you spot opportunities to make you, grow even more than you thought possible, make you more profitable than you maybe first realised, help you work towards their goals where you want to retire at 50 or whatever the case may be. Our guys can help work with you to achieve those goals. So we're a lot more than just sitting there doing tax returns. So it's worth reaching out if any of that strikes a chord with you. Okay. And then just to sort of sum up before I get stuck into some questions, just to sort of summarise in hopefully clear and concise manner, because you guys have got enough going on in your brains, I'm sure, is a few steps. So the first one is plan. You have to identify if and when you are affected by MTD. Without that, you don't know when your start point is. And without that, you can't then work back and work out a strategy. So it is key to make sure you truly understand when you are going to be affected by MTD, if you're going to be affected by MTD. Okay. The next one is the big one. The next one, in my eyes, takes the most work. Okay. Because this is preparing. So you have to be thinking about what software are you going to use? Are you going to use an accountant to help you with some of this? Do you need to find said accountant to help you with some of this? Because you always want to find an accountant that you get on with. All right. So that may take a bit of time. Training on the software, training on MTD, making sure you understand some of the more detailed rules behind it. And then you have to register for MTD. Don't ask me why HMRC's done it this way, but they have. So if you are affected by MTD, whether you've had a letter from HMRC or you just know you've gone over the threshold, you have to register for MTD. So it's something you have to do. Okay. And then, again, the hardest bit, it doesn't take as long, admittedly, but it is the hardest bit. You have to make a start. So I always say that even if you are due to come into MTD on the 5th of April, have a look at software now. Start using software now. Have a play. Get your head round it. You know, that's the way that you're going to learn the most, is by taking action and actually playing around with something. That's when it all starts to sink in and you start to come up with a bit of a process in your mind. So making a start is going to be key. All right. And don't put pressure on yourself. If you are feeling really like I'm running rapidly out of time, don't get me wrong, the 5th of April is coming. So you do have to register for MTD by then if you are affected by it. So that's an absolute must. But when it comes to software and starting getting your bookkeeping on software, you've got to remember your first submission isn't until 7th of August. All right. So you have got a bit of breathing space. As much as I encourage you to get on board and do everything once a month to make your lives easier and give yourself less of a headache, you've technically got until 7th of August for the first one. All right. So don't worry too much, but you want to try and tackle it as quickly as you can. Okay. Using the software. So using the software now to understand things, as I've already said, is key. And then lastly, reviewing the bookkeeping that you're doing, reviewing the software that you're using. Any problems, tackle them now. Don't put them off. We're all guilty of burying our heads in the sand and hoping that these problems go away. I think we all hoped MTD would go away. Unfortunately, it's not. We've all got to deal with this. You guys obviously running your businesses have then got to, deal with this. But even us as accountants, we've now got to deal with this with all of our clients. So we've had to change all of our processes and working patterns and everything as well. So we do get it. I promise you, we do understand that this is not a simple thing. But I promise you, with the software and the help of a good accountant, it can literally take all of this worry and weight off your shoulders. But the key is to tackle it head on. All right. And yeah, so when it comes from us, obviously we help onboard all of our clients, and that means getting them set up with the right software and the right processes. We help you with your digital bookkeeping journey. We train you how to do it. We can help you do the quarterly submissions. We can do them for you, or we can be that sort of checkpoint as well. We will obviously complete the final tax return, which is where, once you've done your 4 quarterly submissions, you do your final tax return submission. And that's where you claim all the yearly allowances and reliefs that you need to. We can help make sure we maximize those for you where applicable. And then at the end of the day, using us, you always have someone at the end of the phone. We believe in people helping people. We want to get to know you. Our tax assist accountants are located in your local communities. They're very much part of your local communities, and they are there to assist you with their teams. So, we don't want you to get some automated voice or some chat bot. We want you to speak to people if you need us to clear everything up. So hopefully, we've covered practical steps on processes that you need, key things that you need to look at if you haven't already started, and also explained how this new point penalty system is going to work. So we've sort of covered the main things off. I think if we try to cover everything A to Z, would be here all week. But I think for now, that's where we'll sort of wrap this up. But what I am going to do now is just start having a look at questions and see where we're getting to. So Helen, how are we getting on with questions?
So I've been trying to answer some questions while you've been presenting there, Sam, but I think there are more questions than I could get through by quite a long shot. So I'm just trying to see if it's obvious which questions I have answered so far. So we don't.
Your answered ones actually appear in a different tab at the top, Helen.
Fantastic.
Our open ones.
Perfect. Right. So let's have a look and see where we are at. There are quite a few questions about overseas sort of bank feeds and overseas income and how that would pull into Making Tax Digital for income tax updates. And there's a number of questions from slightly different angles there, but that's been a bit of a theme of several questions.
Yeah.
And a question that several people have asked, I don't think I've answered all of them, is, do I need to have the same software as my accountant? Which I think the short answer is generally yes, but I don't know if you want to give the specific answer there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, at the end of the day, whatever software you choose, if you've chosen a software and you go to an accountant, most accountants will try and work with you with that bit of software, but equally, most accountants normally work with a set suite of products just because they'll have a better relationship with those products. So they may well then talk to you about, well, actually, if you move to this product, one, as your accountant, I can give you a better price on this. We can train you on it and we can better support you on it. So they may encourage you to move over, but ultimately the decision is yours. And like I said, most accountants are familiar with most products. So they normally are happy for you to stay with the product that you're on and just help you with that. But they may well still talk to you about the benefits of moving over to a product that they're more familiar with, and obviously they would explain the benefits of doing so as well. So, it's neither here nor there. You're well within your rights to choose a software. And again, find an accountant that works with that software.
Another question which has come up several times, Sam, is what counts as two separate businesses? There's a particular question here, I think, is a good one from Prudence, which is, I'm registered as an author and a personal development guide, which is both self-employment. Does that count as separate businesses or not?
Yes. Short answer, yes. So basically for every trade, they call it every trade under self-employment, because when you're a sole trader, they kind of, previously HMRC would just look at everything as, okay, you're self-employed, you've got multiple trades. When it comes to these submissions, every trade should be different. Okay. So even as a sole trader, you would separate out those trades. So unfortunately, that does mean you would have 2 submissions every quarter. Likewise, if you had self-employment, you had a business, but you also had property income, again, that's 2 submissions, one for the property, one for the trade, so to speak. Okay.
There's a couple here that are listed as anonymous, but I think these are a couple of good ones too to go for. My income is just below the 50,000 for the tax year at 49,800. Will it be rounded up, or will I not need to register for Making Tax Digital?
So again, Helen, correct me if I'm wrong. Now, basically, they will, the threshold is 50,000. They're not suddenly going to round up your income or anything like that. That's a bit blooming mean, if you ask me. However, what you do need to be mindful of is, because you are so close, chances are you may well make that in the year. So for your own sanity, it might be best just to do it, because you are so close, just to bring yourself into MTD. Because obviously in the year that it actually kicks off, chances are you're going to go above that 50,000. So that might be reason enough to get yourself in and just deal with it. But technically, HMRC wouldn't round up.
All right, thank you, Sam. From Richard, if you share a property business with one other person, but with only one business bank account, how is this handled for MTD?
Yeah. So in those situations, obviously it's going to look at, you basically end up submitting your share, so to speak, within your submission. So obviously you will submit your share of that property business, and your partner would submit their share of the property business.
Okay. I'm a sole trader and registered with the Construction and Industry Scheme. Do I state gross income as invoiced or the amount paid into my bank?
Oh, sorry, just say that again, Helen. I missed that first.
Sorry, I'm a sole trader and registered with the Construction and Industry Scheme. Do I state gross income as invoiced or the amount that's paid into my bank? So I assume that Anonymous is having CIS deductions taken from their invoices there.
So we're basically looking at gross. It's always gross when we look at these things. That's the income that you want to be looking, and that's the income that you'll be reporting. Because if you think about your self-assessment tax return, how it's done historically, it's the gross income you show in income on your tax return minus all your expenses. Then your tax gets calculated, and your CIS deductions, they are almost like unofficially payments on account of your actual tax bill. So they're always kept a little bit separately. So the same would apply here as well. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Sam. I'm with Tax Assist already and have set up a Making Tax Digital payment plan. Will my accountant register me, or do I need to register myself?
So a lot of accountants are basically there and can help you register, so they can help you do that for you. But equally, if there's any doubt, I would check. All right, no one wants to assume that the other person's doing it and both parties are assuming the same, and then no one ends up getting registered. I think for your sanity, just double check. 9 times out of 10, most accountants will help you do that registration. But again, just check, just make sure you're both on the same page, just to avoid any issues down the line.
Okay. A good one here on software, Sam. Is it worth using the MTD software even if my qualifying income is lower than 20k?
Yes, because potentially, although we've got the next through sort of bandings for later years when other people are going to be brought into MTD, we don't know if that's the end of it. For all we know, in a couple of years, the government can say, right, everyone has to be part of it, doesn't matter what level of income you've got, okay? So in all honesty, I would recommend any software you use going forward just to make your life easier, so that you don't have to change software in the future, is make it an MTD compliant software, because they're all still good bits of kits. And when I tell you this HMRC pre-approved list isn't restricting you to like 10 bits of software, there are hundreds on there, okay? So there is something for everyone on this list at varying levels and at varying price points. So I think it's a more than sensible way to do things by looking to get on one of these bits of software that is already MTD compliant, just to avoid any potential having to, use a new bit of software down the line if you weren't. Okay.
Okay. From David, my wife and I jointly own our holiday let. Does this mean that we need to submit a return each per quarter?
Yes.
David doesn't mention whether there are any other properties there or if it's just that one.
Yeah, no, because you are still classed as a landlord, in your own rights, even though you're splitting, the income, so to speak, the profits, each of you will still need to do that. But again, for you landlords, this is why the Hammock software that I mentioned earlier that we partner with is very good, because you just put like the total income and expenses from each property, you put the split in, and then the software will do the relevant submissions for you, for each individual partner that's involved. So it really can make your life easier having that right bit of software. But yes, each one has to do a submission.
I am registered for MTD for VAT. Does this mean I'm automatically registered for income tax MTD? I think this is another important one.
Oh, it is, absolutely. Now, as much as you and me would all love HMRC to maybe work a little bit more logically than they do, I can safely tell you, no, it doesn't automatically mean you are registered. So for those of you that are registered for MTD for VAT, if you are over those thresholds, which chances are you would be, then you will have to register for MTD under income tax, and you will have to do obviously 2 lots of submissions. All right, one under MTD for VAT, one under MTD for income tax. Okay, so just be mindful of that. All right. But yeah, how are we doing for time? We've got 1 minute. So.
Right. Oh, there's a couple of questions on this one. How does MTD work with payments on account?
So basically, you've got to remember that MTD at the moment is all to do with the filing. Okay, we are filing things to HMRC. When it comes to the payment of your taxes, that has not changed. So, if you obviously are over the relevant threshold, so you have to make payments on account in January and July, they stay exactly the same. All right, so you will still be making those payments on account. The payment side of this process has not changed. So your payment deadline is still 31st of January following the end of the tax year, whether you've done the quarterly submissions or not. And obviously then if you pay payments on account, they are still due by the same payment deadlines at the moment. Okay, so that part of the process has absolutely stayed the same. Okay.
Okay. Have we got time for one more, Sam, or are we?
I think so. Let's do quickly one more and then we'll wrap up.
Okay. Practically speaking, how do you elect for calendar month ends rather than tax month ends?
So basically, it's an election you make through HMRC. So when you register for MTD, it's an option under that you either stick with the default or you elect to use the calendar month. All right, so it's part of that sort of process. So do have a little look at that as well. And equally, if you are working with an accountant and they are helping you register for MTD, make sure you are both clear with your accountant what method you want to operate under as well, so they can make that relevant election for you. Okay, so I think we've covered as many as we can. I know that loads of you have already put in questions as well. For those of you that have got your names on the questions, I think what we can try and do is sort of do, we'll try and do, I think, a generic list of Q&As that we can maybe put up on our website to answer some of these. I think that's going to be the easiest way to tackle some of these. Some of you are putting in some fantastic questions, and I don't want to miss any out. So I think what we'll try and do is pull out a hot topic of each of the questions you're asking and try and give you bespoke answers, and we'll do it as one big updated article on our website, and we'll make sure it's circulated to everyone as well. Okay, and yes, about the monthly checklist, I'm absolutely sure we can put that as a PDF on our website as well, so that you can use that as a tick box exercise as well. I haven't got a problem doing that, because I believe we can all help each other through this lovely journey that is MTD. So hopefully you've found that useful. And again, any feedback, please do, drop us a line. Your feedback is welcome. And we are looking to do a few more of these. So if there's anything specific that you're thinking, actually, it'd be really good to understand that particular area, please do let us know. And we're more than happy to do another webinar on it. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone participating. I can see some more questions coming in. We won't shut it down just yet. We will wrap it up there. But any more questions, do type them in and we'll make sure they get mopped up in our sort of big log of FAQs that we'll release. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone that's joined us today. I do appreciate your time and efforts. But yeah, I'll just leave it open for a few more questions, but you're all welcome to leave and get on with your busy days. And yeah, hopefully see you at the next webinar. So yeah, take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And